What's going on, everybody? It's time to talk some hockey with my guy Jim Biringer. Jim, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Miguel. How we doing?
We're doing good, man. One of the biggest storylines this week, Patrick Kane finally, and I repeat, like The Rock says, finally, he found a home. There were rumblings going on about possibility going to Toronto Maple Leafs, but according to sources and things like that, last year we knew that he wanted to get traded to the Rangers, and then this season supposedly he had the Florida Panthers and the Detroit Red Wings on his list, and he's joined the Detroit Red Wings. Like I said before we start recording, I'm looking forward to seeing him in this uniform. I feel that it suits him. However, we've had to see how he will perform because he just had a hip surgery. He's 35 years old. So it's a 1-year deal, which is now risky. But, we've had to see how this will play out because a hip surgery is serious. So, but I'm looking forward to see Kane in a Detroit Red Wing uniform.
Yeah, it's going to be a little weird, but it's going to be a little fun. I mean, he played against the Detroit Red Wings for how many years when he was in Chicago, 3 Stanley Cups, so the rivalry. When Chris Chelios got traded to Detroit and he went there, the Chicago fans were not too happy about that. That's one of their biggest rivals. So seeing Kane in that Detroit Red is a little weird, but it's a little cool too because he wasn't going back to Chicago. From the beginning, Detroit was on the list, Buffalo was on the list, Carolina here, Colorado there, Florida in at times, Rangers in at times. But I think it made the most sense for him to go to Detroit. I mean, Dallas was even in there, but you think about it, the Rangers, Florida, even Colorado, even Dallas all had to make salary cap moves just because, to work him in. Detroit had the most salary cap space. They had $5 million. We weren't sure how much he was going to get. Could he get $5 million? But he takes a 1-year deal, $2.75 million. It's perfect because a lot of these teams, let's be honest, like you said, hip resurfacing surgery. We don't know what he's actually going to be like in gameplay. We saw what happened with the Rangers last year as an injury. And they tried to make that work, but they just couldn't do it. And I think the Rangers didn't want to take the risk again of having Kane injured and moving their young players around and not having that chemistry in the room. They're rolling right now, so I don't think they wanted to break that up. But Detroit, he goes in there. His buddy Alex DeBrincat's there. They've played in Chicago. It just made the most sense. The puzzle pieces were there. It's close to Chicago. He's from, he lives there. His parents are in Buffalo. The travel from Detroit is similar to Chicago, so we're going to see how that hip holds up because we know with John Klingberg in Toronto, the hips, they're tough on the travels and those planes, but, if he gets the right recovery, he's at the morning skate against the Rangers. They play in Madison Square Garden Wednesday night, national game. They play back-to-back. They got Chicago coming to town tomorrow. You got to figure maybe one of those 2 games, but the timeline's next week. He's got to see how he feels. But very good to see this get done, and this was the timeline originally. It probably could have gotten done last week if it wasn't for the holiday.
The Detroit Red Wings, they've missed the playoffs for the past 7 seasons or so. And the fact that you have a guy like Steve Yzerman in the front office, that plays a factor in why Patrick Kane came to Detroit. So, you're going to be surrounded by a guy that has been there, that has won it, that has great leadership. And I feel like Patrick Kane will bring that to this organization, bring some leadership, be a great locker room presence for the Detroit Red Wings. The Detroit Red Wings, obviously, they've gotten better. We will be seeing them in the postseason very soon. If not this year, then maybe next year. But they are getting better. They are upgrading. I hope Patrick Kane can contribute. But my question to you is, if you had to predict, this is not a right or wrong answer. If you have to predict how many points, if healthy, will he put up?
I mean, look, the last time we saw DeBrincat and Kane together, they combined for like 41 points and even more than that. I mean, and it's only been 3 years now, so those guys the chemistry there is real. It's real chemistry between Alex DeBrincat and Patrick Kane. And like you said, the Detroit Red Wings haven't made the playoffs in 7 years. Steve Yzerman wants to make the playoffs. You saw all the offseason moves that they've made. They're playing well. They're sitting third in the Atlantic right now. And remember, we did things off the top. What was one of Buffalo, Detroit, Ottawa to get in the playoffs this year from the Atlantic? I think a healthy Patrick Kane, I could see around 50 points, especially if they get that chemistry going with the Brinket. You know, he's going to help on the power play, so power play points are going to be there. He still has a great shot. You're not getting Patrick Kane to play defense. He doesn't play defense. So his offensive ability, and look, the system that they have in place, Derek Lalonde, a lot of Zoom calls, a lot of meetings. He's impressed with what they're doing in Detroit. There's a reason he signed there. And it's good because what I was hearing from all along was it was always going to be a one-year deal. It wasn't going to be a multi-year deal because teams were just afraid of that hip. Now, he's got a one-year deal, prove-it kind of deal. If it works, maybe they extend him in the offseason. If it doesn't, maybe he goes someplace else. Who knows? Because the cap's going to go up anyway. But I think a healthy Patrick Kane, Detroit's going to make the playoffs. I don't know if they're going to be a Stanley Cup contender. But if Kane gets off to any kind of hot start with the Brinket, look out for Detroit to explode.